now let's talk about gradients. So because we can see so many gradients are using in web design and mobile design, some of them are really good and some of them are not that good aesthetically and user experience wise. Those are not good combinations. So let's see how we can create a good gradient combination in our designs. So if you take Instagram logo, it gradient gives the icon more depth and dimension. So if we create a plain logo with, let's say, this purple color, it won't give this kind of experience. So only if it's in gradient version, that is why it is giving this kind of a depth and dimension to the logo. Gradients help to create something new and unexpected. Even a tiny element such as a logo can be exciting if you apply it correctly. Apply a gradient to it. So even a logo or any other button, call to action button, can be exciting. You can give them a new experience to your users if you are using gradients, but you have to select gradient colors wisely and it should apply for the use case as well. So if you try to apply gradient colors for, let's say, professional application, banking application, it will not be a good idea. But if you try to develop an application for young people, uh, using this kind of a color scheme can be a good idea. It will give them more depth and dimension, and it will feel excited to use this particular application when you have that kind of a background. And then we can empathize certain elements. Take a look at the home page example below. Text message and call to action button plays a key role in this layout, and gradient background visually prioritize the elements. So in here, you can see the background gradient and the logo. So most of the time when users visit your website, the first area that they focus on your website is left-hand side top, right here, which we call this area we call hero area. And this is the area they scan first time. So gradients are perfect when you need to draw people's attention to certain areas. So this is the prominent area with the text and the description and the call to action button. So designer want users to draw their attention here. So they are using their gradient wisely to give the message that they want to give. So if we take a website like Stripe, it is also using this kind of a gradient background. So the gradient is actually using animation, which actually focal point is somewhere in here. So it is easily draw users' attention to this particular part. So they will read this and their description text is not distracted with this gradient and call to action button right here. So that is another good example of like good way of using gradient in your UI. Then basic types of gradient. So if I open a page on Figma, let's create a, okay. First one is linear gradient. To create a linear gradient, you need to specify two colors or two tints of the one color. So let's create a rectangle here and we are going to fill it with two gradients. So the first one, we can select from here. So I'm going to select this blue color as the first color, or maybe this one as the first color. And the second color I'm going to select is this one. Maybe this one, let's say. Okay, this is the second color. So this is a linear gradient. So it is, you can see this line, it is linear. So if I change the direction of that line, it will be like this. So this is the linear gradient and how we can create a linear gradient in Figma. And then we have radial gradients are similar to linear gradients except that they radiate out from a central point. As a designer, you can dictate where that central point should be and specify the size of gradient. So if I change this to a square and change this to radial, so it has a focal point. It is right here. So you can change that point and rotate it as you need. So let's say this is the size of the gradient that you need. So this is the radial gradient. You can customize it accordingly. And you can add multiple colors as well. But basically, radiant colors need at least 2 colors. Okay, next we have conic gradient is similar to a radial gradient, but both are circular and use the center of element as the source point for color stops. However, for the radial gradient, the color stops emerge from the center of the circle, while a conic gradient places color stops around the circle. So you can see the difference here. So if I select angular gradient, so that is the difference. So you can clearly see where the colors are changing. And you can change the focal point and the color change in place like that. But the color combination, the color splitting or the change in place is visible. Okay, these are some tips that can use to create impressive gradient. Number one, don't choose color randomly. So red to green gradient looks dirty. So if you select random colors, let's say opposite to each other or some random colors, and if you put it in your rectangle and see, you can see that these colors are not that good. So you have to make sure that it is better to use analog colors, colors that next to each other on the color wheel or shades of the same color. So if you want to create a button, let's say I'm trying to create a button and the button text can be sign up. First color I'm selecting is this. I'm going to create a gradient, and the second color I'm going to select is this color. This is my button. So you can see it's a good practice. So if I select two different colors, let's say I have this kind of layout. I select my first gradient color as red, this red color, and the second color is blue, or let's select green. So you can clearly see that it's not that good. So the color combination is not that uniform, and it don't appear to be aesthetically pleasing as well. So always make sure to select colors next to each other or same color shades from a one solid color like this. Create smooth transition. The transition between colors should be really smooth. Ideally, the user shouldn't notice the place where one color flows to another. So in here, if I zoom it in, you can't clearly see where one color stops and the other color starts. But if I change this to something like this, you can see that the blue color is stopping from here and the other color is starting somewhere around here. So that is not a good uh, gradient if you create it like that. So this one is a good one. It create a smooth transition. You can't clearly see and distinguish which color is stopping where. And if you take this one, take a look at the following example. You can notice the line that separates two colors. This line creates the impression of abrupt transition. This is not a good practice. All right, next one is convey emotion or mood. Color evokes emotional responses. We can use this color property to connect with the audience on a deeper level. So this one, bright bold colors stir positive feelings. So as I mentioned, when I talk about yellow color, we talked about positive feelings, the warmth and everything. So you can combine two different feelings uh, with a gradient. So you can combine this orange color with a yellow color and see how it look like and try to convey the feelings. This particular airline service, they have this kind of a combination, the gradient combination with two different gradients that next to each other in the color wheel, and they are using it to create a background effect. Okay, this kind of a deep tones, we talked that blue is a deep color. So it is bringing calmness to your users. And even here, the blue color they are using, it is nice to look at, and it is not giving you any distraction. So eye strains when looking at it, it is easy to eye as well. So that is why it is a deep tone and it is bringing calmness to your users. Okay, this is something you should avoid. Try to avoid acid colors. Acid color uh, in its original context referred to a bitter taste. Acid colors rarely work well in user interfaces because they demand too much attention. So if you have a background, as you have in right hand side, it will demand so much of users' attention. So if you have text content or button content in your website, maybe on top of this, it won't get that much of attention that you want as a designer, that you want your users to give to them. So make sure to avoid these colors until you have some uh, skits. There are some specific cases that you can use acid colors, such as, let's say, a music festival or some different theme. Uh, you can use these particular colors, but you have to make sure to use it wisely. So if you don't have a solid design skills, it's safer to avoid using them in your UI, especially when you design a gradient. So make sure not to use acid colors in your gradients like this. Okay, use gradient to direct the eye to a certain part of the screen. You can use a gradient to create focal points, especially helpful for smaller elements such as call to action buttons. So in here, this menu item, it has a orange and yellow, the lighter orange version of a button. And it is demanding users' attention to this particular add to cart button, call to action button. So you can use it to a certain point, certain focal point in the screen. So this is the focal point in this screen. So I showed you Stripe website, this one. So it is this part is the focal point in this particular case, and they have a good solid button here where users can easily interact. Okay, next one, don't forget about the color contrast. No matter how beautiful your design is, you shouldn't forget about accessibility. Always check the color contrast ratio. So uh, you play with different colors and you decided that this is the color that look like for our design, look good in our design and everything. And make sure you do your accessibility tests as well, especially if your application involves so many users in uh, elder ages as well. So you have to, this one on the left hand side, it is lack of a color contrast lead to bad readability. You hardly see the text on the background. And considering this, it is easily readable, even though the background gradient look that good, but it is very readable when comparing to this one. Okay, these are some other tools that you can use. in UX Pro website, they have different blog posts and some exercises that you can do and get some color tools and color combinations to a website that you are designing or developing. We have another color generator, UI generator. So it will give you different colors based on the design that you are selecting. And you can play around and select different colors and see how the combination will look like.